Hello, everyone. James Wilson here, and today I'm going to do another video. It deals with numbers, and I wasn't going to name this video the real reason why Democrats want to impeach Trump. It was going to be analyzing the last 10 elections, the vote percentage difference, and the turnout percentage, and talking about it. But when I saw these numbers, lightning just struck my head as far as some numbers are concerned. So I wanted to talk about it. And also, I am going to analyze everything here, and going to, at the end of the day, talk about what these numbers mean and why I feel the real reason why Democrats want to impeach Trump. Let's talk about the first set of numbers. The vote percentage difference compared to the last election. So what this means is, for example, 2004. We compared the total amount of votes in 2004 and compared it to 2000, the year 2000. And you get a number. So you have the total amount of votes for the year 2000, and you have a total amount of votes for the year 2004. Whatever the difference is a particular number, and it's broken down by percentage. So in the year 2004, there is 13.8% more votes compared to the 2000 election. And so, as you can tell already, the 2020 election had a very close, but a lower percentage of voting difference compared to 2004. So, yes, 2000 had a higher turnout percentage. Actually, it was an extremely high turnout. I'll talk about that later. But as far as the vote differences compared to the previous election, you will see that that 2004 is actually has a higher turnout, followed by 2020. And so when you look at these numbers here, these are in pink, the last three, because they lost votes, folks. There's actually less votes in the 1988, 2012, and 1996 election. So we can talk about, why were there so many more votes, and the turnout, how it compared to the turnout, because turnout's pretty easy, the percentage of people that actually decided to vote. Okay, so as you can tell, I had the bottom two circled and the voting percentage difference. These two elections were similar in one aspect compared to the rest of the elections. They were similar. Can you take a guess how these two elections are similar compared to each other? I'll give you a few seconds to think about it. If you said at these two elections the incumbent president was the Democrat, you would be absolutely correct. So out of the last 10 elections that we have here, only two of them had the situation where the Democrat was the incumbent. So we can go back in 2004, George W. Bush, a Republican, was the incumbent. In 2020, Donald Trump was the incumbent. And in 1992, George H.W. Bush was the incumbent. Isn't that interesting how the Republicans, when the Republicans are the incumbent, the votes increase. When the Democrats are the incumbent, the votes decrease. I find that very interesting. 1988 is when a Republican won. This is the only time a Republican won after a Republican was in office for 8 years. So this is the third time a Republican won in a row. And so maybe in 1988 people were talking about, and I don't know because I was a little boy, how the Democrat Party is in shambles. But that's possible. Now they're talking about how the Republican Party is in shambles. But isn't that interesting? You know, you have the you have the 1992 election, which had a high turnout, and you had the 2008, which had a pretty high turnout. And when you look at this, 1992 was ranked number 5 as far as turnout percentage, and 2008 was ranked number 2. But when you look at 2012, is actually ranked number 6, and it's ranked near the bottom. 1996 is ranked number 10. So it's like the Democrats, they turn out to vote, but when it comes to re-election, they're like, I don't want to vote, you know? And so the people decide not to show up to vote. And so that I find very interesting. I don't believe in, the odds of, 2 elections out of the last 10 elections, only 2 of them where the Democrat was the incumbent, and they had the lowest amount of votes compared to the previous election, as far as a percentage basis is concerned. The odds of that are very minute. That's an anomaly, folks. And so, the green is when they gain votes, and the pink is when they lost votes. I'm going to go ahead and move on to turnout percentage. So, what is the pink in the green? The last 5 elections are in the green. The 5 elections before that, earlier elections, are in the pink. As you can tell, there's a positive correlation in the year compared to the turnout. In the 2000s, the turnout was higher on average compared to the 80s and 90s. Why is that? Well, it comes to a few different things. I know an 80s song when they talk about a waitressing practicing politics, how that particular waitresses don't typically practice politics. Well, right now waitresses are practicing politics, folks. That's what's going on. A higher turnout, and there's a few reasons. I have some. I have some educated guesses. Number one is the Democratic Party changed in 1992. I really do feel that the Democratic Party has changed. They wanted to promise people free stuff. And I know they did it with LBJ and stuff like that back in the day, but the Democratic Party changed in 92. And they changed the identity politics. And so they want to give people free stuff. You need to vote for Democrats. Blah, blah, blah. The media started to change as well. I don't know if you've ever heard of the media back in the 80s and 90s, but if you really listen to the media back in the 80s and 90s compared to today, you will find out that the media back then was more factual, in my opinion, and maybe considered more boring to the younger generation. They didn't want to watch the news, but now it's like everything is so, opinionated. Journalism is pretty much dead in this country anyways. It's all, they talk about the fact checkers and the Republicans are wrong about everything. The Democrats are right about everything. how bad Trump is, how bad Bush was, how great Obama is. They really like to they really they really like to say they really like to give their opinion more than factual information. The news is supposed to be a source where you go to see what's going on, and to get the facts. And unfortunately, that's not what's going on anymore. So when you hear the facts back in the day, people were not people were bored with the facts, folks. Especially the younger generation, they get bored extremely easily. But now you have all these people coming up, rock stars and media personnel, sports, and all this crap. They want to get political. The NFL, the NBA, all these things that young people like to tend to listen to. They want to get political. And in my opinion, sports and politics don't mix, but the NFL doesn't agree with that. And these numbers indicate that these turnout numbers, these are younger voters, folks. Okay? They're younger voters who listen to the media and they absorb the information. Now I want to show you something that's very interesting. As you can tell, I circled these two elections, 2020 and 2008. There is a similarity between these two elections. I'm going to give you a few seconds to think about it. If you said that the similarities between these two elections, which you have the first black president in 2008 and the first female black vice president in 2020, you'd be absolutely correct. And there's a positive correlation between the turnouts from the first black president and the first black female vice president. You will see that the turnouts are much higher than the rest of the elections. And as you could tell, Barack Obama, his re-election, he didn't do as well. He was about average, okay? 1992 was a little bit better as far as turnout is concerned. Now, this is when you had Bush and Clinton and Ross Perot, and it was a very interesting election. Ross Perot did take a lot of votes from Bush, but I'm sure that people who voted for Perot may have voted for Clinton as well. But with that being said, Bush lost a lot of votes, and Perot gained a lot of votes, and Clinton as well. Clinton only won 43%, but in 1992. This is an anomaly when you look at the patterns and the numbers, that there is an extremely high voter turnout because you had three major candidates. You had Ross Perot, and I do believe that did kind of create a new voter bloc. Now, Ross Perot was the guy who did the graphs and the charts and everything like that. And, he was just, he was a little bit out there, but I actually liked the guy. I thought he'd probably be a good president. And then if I could have voted, I probably would have voted for Ross Perot. Well, with that being said, when you look at the turnouts, Trump against Hillary Clinton wasn't too bad, folks, compared to the rest of the numbers. Bush and Kerry was extremely high. That was probably because of the war. But I want to tell you something that's very interesting. It's been 44 years. When you exclude a viable third-party candidate, I'm excluding a viable third-party candidate such as Ross Perot, okay? It has been 44 years since a Democrat has won the presidency, where both the president and the vice president were white. That's just a fact, folks. If a Democrat candidate, if they're both white, it gives them an extreme disadvantage. And I think it's because the black turnout isn't going to be as high, naturally speaking. And I think that's part of the reason why the turnout was extremely high here, is because of the black female vice president in Kamala Harris. I do think that if it's like Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren or some white lady or some white guy running with Joe Biden, this turnout would not have been as high. This turnout was also much higher due to the mail-in ballots. Joe Holder, the mail-in voter, makes it easier to vote, folks. And as I said, I believe voting should be a task. And that's another reason why the turnout percentage was higher. See, young people typically naturally don't want to vote. But they're voting a little bit more, in my opinion, because of the mass media and because of the mail-ins. It makes it much easier to vote by mail. If you're young, you just fill it out and send it back. And if you don't send it back, you might get a ballot harvester that tries to harvest your votes. And that's another reason why I think these numbers are high, is because of all the ballot harvesting that's going on now. That's an indication, folks. It's an indication of cheating and things of that nature when you have, ballot harvesting going on, the mail-in ballots now. When the election could be rigged, it could be rigged more. I mean, as I said in previous videos, I really don't know if fraud existed, but based on 42 out of 50 states trending to the left, it's going to be very hard to prove that there was fraud. But I think these numbers are very interesting because it shows that the turnouts are much higher. But when you look at it, I mean, what were they doing back in the 80s and 90s? What were they doing? Smoking cigarettes and going to the bar or something? I mean, was that what they were doing? The bottom 30% or the bottom 40% of the totem pole? I mean, were they smoking cigarettes and going to the bar and just living their life, not caring about politics? Or maybe that's what they were doing. And now it's like, please pay for my student loans, give me. I want everything. I want the new latest iPhone. It's all about me. And that's why I think it's higher. So it's just some kind of rambling here, but going back to my topic, because I was way off topic. Going back to my topic, we all know that Donald Trump, regardless, as long as he has that same energy level, he is going to turn out people, period. And statistics show that when the Democrat president is the incumbent, that the voting, the amount of votes compared to the previous elections going to be lower. And so more than likely, I don't know about the mail-ins. I know everything is changing rapidly here, but in some normalcy, there's going to be less overall voting. And so if Trump gets in again, he is going to create the turnout like he did before. His people didn't mail in the ballots, folks. He didn't get a lot of mail-in votes. They were mainly in person. So they're going to vote in person again. And who knows, maybe in 4 years there'll be more people that turn out to vote for him. I guess it just depends on the economy and how everything is going. But this scares Democrats big time because they know, based on the numbers, that the turnout is going to be lower than last time. When you look at the Democratic incumbent presidents. The turnout is lower. And I will have to give the Democrats credit here because they have a coalition. When the Republicans win, they do that harvesting and they notch it up, folks. They notch it up big time. And that's why when you have the Republicans, the incumbents, that's a top three right there, folks. You have Bush, you have Trump, and you have Bush Sr. Top three, folks. Top three. And then you have, of course, Reagan in '84. He ran for re-election, but that was a long time ago, folks. And, this is probably before major ballot harvesting and everything else. They've ramped it up. You can tell by the numbers they ramped it up. It's just that in 2004, Bush had the support because of the war. He didn't make the same mistake that his daddy did and got out of the war before the election. He stayed in that war, and I don't agree with the war, but I'm just telling you, he stayed in the war, and I think part of it was to win the election. Donald Trump didn't even have a war. The liberals back in the day, 12, 13, 14, 15 years ago, was complaining about the Iraq war, blah, blah, blah. I wish I had a president that didn't put us in war. Well, Donald Trump didn't put us in war, folks. So, it is what it is. But he exposed the government corruption for sure, And, it shows they wanted him out big time, and they got what they wanted. And you know what? 42,853 votes separated them. All it took was about 43,000 more votes. Trump would have won the election. In the state of Georgia, Trump lost by 11,788 votes, which is 16 electoral votes. Arizona was 10,457, which is 11 electoral votes. And Wisconsin was 20,608, which is 10 electoral votes. Comes to a total of 42,853 votes, which is 37 electoral votes. All Trump had to do was get, maybe 12, 13,000 more votes here, and then, 15,000 more votes there, 25. I mean, not a lot. This was a very close election, folks. This was not a blowout. I know a lot of the, liberal media and everything else are talking about a blowout, but if Trump would have won, Arizona, Georgia, and Wisconsin, he would have had 269 electoral votes. It would have went to the House of Representatives. They have a mass Republican majority because it's only one vote per state, and Trump would have won. More than likely, he would have won the election. That's what would have happened. And so, a long time ago, I had a video about what are the odds of Trump winning 3 states by 79,000 votes, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. He won by the skin of his teeth. I said, well, it's very minute. Well, the odds of Biden winning these 3 states, again, are also very minute. So point is that he can win those states again. And they are scared and they want to impeach him. And they're using the Capitol as an excuse to impeach him. All he had was as I said, he may have known that stuff was going on. That stuff may have happened if he had his rally, by the Capitol. He knew exactly what Mike Pence was going to do. I said that in another video, and I'm not going to backtrack from that. But at the end of the day, he shouldn't be impeached for it. I mean, he never said to storm the Capitol. He never said that. So I think the Democrats are scared. I think the Democrats are scared because they know that the turnout's going to be more likely going to be less in the next election, and Trump's going to keep a lot of the same people, possibly. He, depending on what happens, but they know that Biden's probably going to get less votes unless Harris runs. It's possible that Harris may run. And I guess it technically could be different. I don't know, but But more than likely, the turnout's going to be less compared to 2020. 2024, the turnout's going to be less than 2020. And, especially if runs against Biden. If Cruz runs against Biden, Cruz is not going to get the turnout that Trump did. And Biden is not going to get the turnout that he did before, because I don't think he's going to be that good of a president, in my opinion. And even though the media is going to say how great he is, um, when people lose their jobs, I mean, people are already losing their jobs. And when people lose their jobs, I'm like, well, I don't think he's that good, you know? And they may vote against him. Who knows? But, so, yeah, so, um, excluding a viable third party candidate, white Democrat vice president candidate has never won an election in the last 44 years. That's the truth, folks. You know, the Democrats, if they want to win, they have to keep running African American candidates, because the white candidates, they don't win. I mean, that's according to the numbers. There's not one time where a white Democrat candidate along with a white vice president won without a viable third party candidate. So 1992 and 1996, yeah, Clinton Gore won, but you also had the Ross Perot factor. So once you eliminate that, the last time it happened was 1976, when it was Carter Mondale, before I was even born, folks. So, when you look at these 6 elections, the Republicans won 1988, 2000, 84, 2016, 2004. Hold on a second here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 5. So the Republicans won 5, and the Democrats won 5. 5 elections. And when you look at the turnout, Democrats won, Democrats won, Democrats won, and Democrats won. And when you look at the last 5, as far as the years are concerned, the Democrats won 3 out of 5. And as far as the top 6, as far as turnout percentage, the Democrats won 4 out of 6. So Democrats really can't win in a low turnout election, unless, they're going against a guy like Bob Dole. And so yeah, Republicans won, Republicans won, Republicans won. And they're lower in the totem pole as far as the turnout percentage is concerned. So when more people turn out, the Democrats win. When less people turn out, typically speaking, the Republicans win, more than likely. And turnout percentage is higher now than it was before, okay? And when you have a black candidate, running for the first time, the turnout's going to be more. And when you have a virus in the mail-in voting, you have a media that bashes Trump 24/7. It makes it easier to vote by mail. Of course, the turnout's going to be higher. Like and subscribe to my channel. Any comments would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.